opportunities as they arise. I know we have to put that 50% matching, and that's a big issue right there, but at the very least, I would like to see some concepts brought forward that we could, take a closer look at, as opposed to, well, not doing it at all. I mean, we could actually have those concepts brought forward and still not do it, right, Denise? But at least we could look very closely at the possibilities and tweak it this way or that, and then make a decision, I guess, in January. Is that what we're looking at? But the money needs to be encumbered right now. Is that correct?
Yes, money's been encumbered, as I understand it, but I wouldn't expect to be back to you probably until February.
February, then?
We've got a meeting established next week, based upon hoping that you would approve the concept. So we want to move forward with our stakeholders, and we have invited everybody to participate in this process, even Hart, and we can talk about 200X. We've been working jointly with them on a new transfer center on airport property. We helped them secure some intermodal funds, so we see this as a hub longer term for local and regional routes, with an opportunity for some private providers as well. So there's a lot of things that we're setting in motion, and this is just one element that we see of that larger plan. Again, Hart and PSTA are in the same boat. All the transit properties are. We can't move forward really with our vision plan without a new funding source.
Thank you. Nancy?
So where does the 50% local match come from?
That would come from PSTA.
Reserves.
Yes, that would have to be
come
reserves.
from our reserves. We have no other source. So we would have to make that hard decision after we see.
So it would come from
plan.
reserves. This is 1 year?
We're looking at potentially 2
We could
years.
make it last over 2 years, so it would be.
Okay,
split
so it would be
over 2.
reserve 1 year and then,
Well,
Reserve.
2 years of reserves, and we think that with the combination of the DOT and our funding, this can go at least 2 years. Again, we can have a benchmark, and we can come back and review this after a year, see where we're at in terms of ridership, determine if we want to continue, what kind of tweaks we want to make, and hopefully we get some FDOT help on what you're talking about with the use of the shoulder. This would be an opportunity, hopefully, to explore some preferential treatments. Once we kind of demonstrate that that can work, that's what's going to make or break BRT long term.
and how does this compare with the routes that we cut back this year? Would this be recreating what we just cut back as far as the service to Tampa?
No, we didn't have any service to Tampa that we cut back.
There were some connections that we had folks, we had emails, we had folks in here.
I think what you might be recalling was that there was some talk about a year ago about the 100X and 300X and dissolving some of those trips or the routes
Right.
to provide service to TIA. There was never any action taken
Okay,
on that.
but we looked into that.
Yes. Right.
Yes, okay. And so how, those routes that we looked at but didn't touch, how would all of the potentials that this grant would allow us to consider compared to what we have?
Well, I think part of what we're trying to do if we move on this is also look at the 100X and the 300X. And instead of operating 14 trips a day, for example, on our 300X, perhaps scale that and provide the service that we've heard from the public they want, which is some of the peak, but we wouldn't necessarily have to provide all of those trips. And somehow interweave these routes. We talked recently about having a connection from the Park and Ride out on Almerton Road, which would be more of a mid-county, that would connect with this new proposal. So again, we've got a lot of concept work and a lot of work to do on it. This kind of came up quickly that we had to encumber this money, go or no go, and I just wanted to get your input on it, and because it does require the match. But we have some work to do. I think that from my view, I think there's changes that we need to make on the other 2X routes, and if we can somehow combine them so we're providing the services that the people want and eliminating the trips that aren't being used, and then use that money that we'd otherwise provide and funnel more to TIA if that's where it's warranted to go, or more into the West Shore district.
Or could that cover some of the local match, not directly but indirectly?
We could if we trim those routes.
Yes.
Okay, we could help fund the new service with that. I mean, one option is to trim those trips that just aren't productive and then use those resources as match. What I'd suggested earlier was an opportunity possibly to use some of the lower productivity trips, instead of using it for match, to see if there is some mid-county ridership, possibly to the airport. If there is, we could start developing that and then one day move North County as well. So we want to see where these markets are. They can't all be in St. Pete. You know, not every TIA passenger or worker is coming from St. Pete. So, and the same for West Shore and these opportunities for reverse commutes. So we've got a couple of opportunities here. We could use it as local match, trim some of those trips from existing Cross Bay, or deviate some of those trips to the airport in West Shore.
Is that it, Nancy?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you, Deborah and Bill and Neil.
Okay, this is going to be real quick.
Yes, thank you.
RB, you know, I totally agree with you, RB, on that. What's going to make this a showpiece and what's going to make this, and you know, I'm not averse to looking at how this college piece might tie into this. I mean, that's a smart idea. But what's going to really make this is some sort of dedicated lane. I mean, if you can get them in the lane and get them over there, that's what's going to be the showpiece. And that, I totally agree with that. And if FDOT is involved in, you know, and Bill, you're telling me that FDOT is going to be really, really involved in this
Yes, ma'am.
conceptual idea, then that's what we have to do. We have to say we need that dedicated preferential lane, because that's what's going to make it express. That's what's going to make it the closest to a BRT.
Thank you. Bill and then Neil.
The suggested motion is to approve to proceed with conceptual development. If we vote in the affirmative on this, are you asking us for additional funding in the next 2 months?
No, sir. What we'll do is we will work on the project proposal. When we come back with the project proposal for your review and your comments and input, then we will talk about local match. If the board is, by consensus, by vote, willing to proceed and dedicate to local match, then we can also ask for approval of that joint participation agreement with FDOT. Once you approve and execute that, you're locked in, because then you have the cost on their side plus the local match on our side. So all we're asking today is for conceptual approval, move forward. We come back with a concept for your approval, and then once you buy in, then we come back with the approval of the joint participation agreement.
Well, I've heard a lot of people say they want to have cross-base service to TIA, so I'm willing to have staff go look at this, considering the comments that have been made here today, and come back to us in a couple of months and say, well, we thought about it, and this is our recommendation. It's not going to cost us anything. I'm always open for looking at ideas and being creative. So, do we have a motion?
No, I'm have to go to public comment and then come back to it. So we're just getting questions right now. Neil? Thank you, Bill.
I agree with you, Bill. I'm always open for new ideas, and that's why I want to ask this. On the Central Avenue BRT, you mentioned that we're talking about 16 hours a day operation, 10-hour, I'm sorry, not 10 hour, 10-minute frequency in the peak hours, 15-minute frequencies in the off-peak. So why does it have to be all that? I know that, right? Why is it got to be 16 hours? Why can't it be 14 hours? Why is it got to be 15 minutes in the off-peak? Why can't it be 20 minutes in the off-peak? And how much would that cost us?
Again, an option here is, if that's the will of the board, is we take these resources and we develop a concept for Central Avenue. So we'll tailor it so that we don't spend any more than what's available from FDOT, and we make that money go as long as it possibly can. Now, how much does that get you? You take the existing frequency and you've plugged in some buses, and it'll be better than it is today. So the point well taken.
So maybe if we brought back two concepts, we could see which is a better place to spend this grant money, particularly if we have to go in the reserves to fund it, and then we could actually make a transportation business decision that this is a better way to spend our money.
We can do that, absolutely.
That's always possible. They can always bring back several options. probably a good idea to have more than one option, obviously. So, okay, are there any more questions at this point from the board? Okay, is there any member of public who'd like to comment on this topic? Please come forward.
Okay, well, Brian Pitts, well, I was getting ready to tank this, very upset, but since the commissioner brought up the idea of taking what you got on the central BRT and changing the criteria and structure of that, it's better to go with that local than that, because you got your 200, you got your 100, you got the 300. You're now going to try this 400 thing, try to figure out some new concoction, blend it in from South and North County and see what you come out with, play around with reserves, whatever, or try to piecemeal money off the existing X's and all this other junk. Then you think about, okay, you did that, but then you got this other angle. Remember, not too long ago, you increased rates and you actually got rid of several other local routes. Now, you match that expense to say, how much did you save getting rid of the existing routes that you got rid of? The first time you did it, 2006, and then recently now, that expense, add that expense. Now he says, okay, we got to spend this grant money for, and then you got a 50-cent match. How close are those numbers going to come cutting local versus starting up this new 400X? I'm staying local, not going over the bridge. Just saying the local cuts that you made to save, and now you're going to dump 50% in on this one route. Forget going over the water. What did you cut local? And now you get raised. Oh, you may well be taking that same money that you tried to save locally, and now you're taking it across the water with one bus, a new 400X. I'm just coming off the cuff figuratively. Now it does do one thing. If you take this 400X, it fits very nicely into the alternative analysis. Oh, it fits very well into that. So those who are gung-ho for that, got to do it. Yes, go ahead. Of course, it shows a staple of, at least we got something going. Though it ain't making money, though it may be breaking the bank, though it's in the red, though it may not do anything ever, but at least the people see something. And I understand those of y'all who said that. But as Commissioner said, you're supposed to also be wise stewards of the money. So yeah, go ahead. Okay, take the commissioner's idea, come back with 2. Fine, that's a nice balance. Can't y'all do that? Yes. Take the 2, but you really want to go for the central BRT thing because that's what you started with. Narrow that down to get it to fit this amount here, and keep it local. You're going to have to figure out some point with the AA how you get across the water with some concept like that 400X that you're talking about. Now, you may go with that anyway, despite what the hell I'm saying today and what Commissioner said. But to do that right now, you got the 100X, that's a real sore. To start this, and you got that 100X sitting there, it's like, no, you're doing it just because you got to find some way to put the money. That's not a good decision then. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Is there anybody else who'd like to speak on this topic? Okay, is there a motion up here?
Move approval.
Second.
Any discussion on the motion?
Is it?
Yeah.
The- I was moving approval of the staff recommendation, but I'd be happy to include the two proposal, to include the alternative of Central Avenue. Do you want to?
Beefing up the service on Central Avenue.
What we could do is bring back local service plus the regional service proposals. We'll bring you back a series of alternatives after staff review and meeting with our stakeholders. So you can review, deliberate, and make a wise decision, just like Mr. Pitts said on this investment. So we'd gladly do that.
I thought that's what you said.
I thought we kind of moved in that direction, so I considered that part of the motion. That's what we intend to do.
That's my motion.
And second agrees?
Yes.
Okay.